Greetings, it is I, Countess Naravan Dracovin, Lord and Emperor of the Dracovin Empire, and welcome. It's time to continue our talking about anime seasons. That we're continuing, of course, the 2016 winter season, and talking about them, and then talking about how to use them in your BESM game. And I'm going to introduce three more now. I'm going to talk about Cardfight Vanguard, technically the current season that's going on. I'm going to talk about AntiMagic Academy, and I'm going to talk about Hidan no Aria AA. Let's start with Hidan no Aria AA. Now, this is a spin-off of the Hidan no Aria series. It's set in a world where there are buntai. Buntai are these elite people that have been trained in order to combat the rising criminal activities. They've got a lot of different types of trainings and different weapons and techniques. They're allowed to carry weapons, and they are there to take out criminals. And now our story is focusing around a school for buntai, the Tokyo Buntai High School. Now, this story focuses around Akiri, who's an E-rank buntai, which is one of the lowest ranks, and she's trying to become the Amirika, or a apprentice to Aria. Now, Aria is a very high-ranked S-rank buntai, and she's the namesake for the main series. So she's one of the characters from the main series, since it is her name in it. And so the series takes place of Akiri trying to live up that she's not as weak as she tries to be, that she's afraid of herself in a way. Because of some things that happened in her past, she kind of fears doing certain things, and her past catches up to her a bit in here. And so, with the help of Aria and some of the characters from the normal series, and some of her own friends, she eventually resolves things throughout the series and gets to a better place where she can start to become the buntai she wants to be. Now, this one I would call it an action. They're trained to battle criminals. They have to deal with fighting things out. They do training amongst themselves. They deal with criminal activities where they're fighting it out. The criminals are pretty elite too. There's the history with Akiri that she has to deal with things that involves combat. I call it a little bit of a comedy. There's some very comedic elements. There's some very silly things that happen that keep things... It breaks the monotony. That's not just like an action-heavy thing. There's like comedic elements in there to break some of the tension and keep things from getting really, like, you know, overly tense. And I also call it a school, because it does revolve around a school for buntai. It's Tokyo Buntai High, and so they're going there and training there, and a lot of things revolve around them training at this school. Now, I rate this one a 4. It's a great series, very enjoyable, and it is a fine spin-off to the Hidan no Aria, which I would also recommend. So let's move on to AntiMagic Academy. So this is set in a world where witches are threatening to, like, damage and destroy the world, and inquisitors are basically being risen to fight against them. Now, granted, not all witches are bad, but the ones that are, there's a large number that are, and so the inquisitors are required. And we're focusing on an academy for inquisitors. So our series focuses on Takeru, who he fights with a katana, which is very unusual because most of the inquisitors fight with some kind of firearm, or learn some kind of basic magical abilities that most non-witches can learn. And he's also the leader of the 35th Test Platoon, which is these kind of band of misfits who don't really do very well on anything. They're kind of the joke of all the platoons. Now, throughout the series, all the characters develop. We introduce a couple of new characters. We introduce an Inquisitor who's quick to kill, basically, rather than capture witches, which is what's suggested. You know, it's more of a civilized sort of world, rather than, you know, kill them all kind of thing. And a witch that's being reformed, you know, that she got into some situations with a dark organization, and so being captured, she's basically, you know, put to being reformed, so she's forced into joining their group, but in and of itself, she does learn sort of to be a better person. And of course, Takeru, he gains a powerful relic eater, which he can use, which is a type of magical artifact used to fighting other witches and magical abilities. And the entire group sort of develops and becomes more well-knit, getting rid of some of the problems that they had, but, you know, were holding them back, eventually getting to the point in time where they make a pretty decent team. Now, this is an action. They fight with witches. They fight with the Dark Organization. They fight with monsters that are summoned. They have a lot of kind of training abilities that they fight it out, like getting training done in order to strengthen themselves. I would call it a fantasy. It has magical powers, magic artifacts. It has this sort of interesting mixture of more modern-day sort of take on technology and magic. So it's not really like futuristic. It's more of a modern magic sort of world. And I would call it a bit of a harem It is light harem. It's all the characters except for Takeru are female on the team. So he's a team of women and Takeru. So he definitely has sort of the harem elements there that some of them do really like him a little bit, but they don't really get anything very deep with it. He's still like the commanding officer. Now I also rate this one a 4. It's a very good series. Now I did want to talk about Cardfight Vanguard. This one I wanted to talk about for a couple of reasons, and I'll explain some of the ones later, but the first one I want to explain is I haven't talked about a game type anime. This is something like a Yu-Gi-Oh! Or like a Beyblade. They're a anime that revolves around some kind of game that more than likely you can play in the real world. Granted, some of the other ones, like a Pokemon or a Yokai Hunter, they are loosely the same way, but they're not quite the same, because they're based on a video game. This is based on a card game, and it really is based on a card game. Now, there's been a lot of seasons of Cardfight Vanguard. There's been 7, with one ongoing, and another one coming up later this year to make the 8th one. And they've had a number of main characters. In the first bunch of seasons, Aichi is our main character. For the first 3 seasons, we see him sort of grow. He gets into the Vanguard. He learns more about himself. He improves as a fighter. He gets a team of friends, a bunch of friends, and he becomes pretty elite as one of the top-rated Vanguard players there is. When we get to the 4th season, his friend Kai kind of takes over for a season. Something happens to him, so Kai goes on this quest to sort of find Aichi. And then the last couple of seasons have been focusing around Chrono, a new character, and it's set 3 years into the future. So we skipped 3 years, and we have Chrono, and all the other characters sort of do appear again, sort of in the background. So we do see the characters from the first bunch of seasons again. It's just we have a new focus that's going on. Now, it's set in a world, of course, where there's card games rule. It's a kind of interesting world where card games are the most popular thing, and Vanguard is the top tier among those. And so a lot of people are playing Vanguard. There's tournaments, all kinds of things going on, but it turns out, and they do learn that per the easy audience, it's been such long, I'll just spoil a little bit here, that the planet that is imagined in Vanguard, Cray, actually exists. It's an actual real place in some kind of space, so there's some kind of connection between the 2 planets, Earth and Cray. That's the reason that people make the card, and there's sort of this strange fantasy mystical elements that sort of bring in here and there that come up like every season, always. It's a little kind of crazy. I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail since there has been so many episodes. If you add them all together, it's been going on for years now. Vanguard is actually a real card game. You can get it. It's fairly popular. I've seen it at conventions before. I haven't really seen it sold anywhere in real life, but I don't go to a lot of shops that may have it. I think there's been 1 or 2 that I've been to that actually have it physically, other than getting them online, I guess. But regardless of talking about the card game, because I don't want to, I never got into that card game, but I just wanted to use this one as an example. So, this is a game anime. We're talking about the genres. It's based around some kind of game. There are plenty of anime that are based around that. I mentioned a bunch at the top of this section when I started talking about Cardfight. I'd call it a science fantasy. It's got very good science elements, but it also has this like kind of science fiction-y feel to it. So it's got this sort of techno fantasy feel that, you know, like the cards, you can like do like little holograms of them, but then you're actually dealing with the actual creatures sometime, and headache. I would also call this one action. They're pretty action heavy with some of the battles and stuff, and they do have very good, you know, scenes with the cards battling and out and fighting and things like that, and they do animate that very well. Now, unfortunately, I do rate this one lower. I rated a 2. I started with the original Cardfight, and it wasn't bad, just because I usually start watching a lot of different anime when a season comes out, and then I taper down into what I feel I really enjoy or not. This one, it's still not a bad show. It really isn't, but it's not a great show either, and it seems to have gone on way longer than it needs to, I think, a little bit, and nowadays I keep with it more for obligation. But that doesn't mean you might not enjoy it more. There are plenty of people that I think enjoyed, like, the Yu-Gi-Oh! Series a lot more than me. I was okay with some of the first ones. you know, and then they kept going with a lot of them, and it just, you know, that's me. A lot of these series, they keep going with them for long periods of time, and it's not necessarily a good thing. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But anyway, so, those are these 3 series I talked about. I talked about Hidan, Aria AA, AntiMagic Academy, and Cardfight Vanguard. In the next episode, I'm going to talk about using these 3 in your BESM games. One of them was certainly a challenge to figure it out. So if you have questions, comments, anything you want to say, anything to find out, please leave in the comments below. Please like this video. Shows your support the channel, the Empire, the work I do. Please subscribe if you already haven't. We're always looking for more members, more citizens. And please share this video. If you know anybody that would learn anything from it, or would just enjoy it, please share it with them. And until the next time,
I bid you farewell.